Hello guys, welcome back to another game. This game is the final game, the round 7 game, the game of all games. It's the game between Ronald Wabwire versus Githinji. The game was played at a Verona hotel. This is the Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki tournament that occurred this past weekend. The tournament started on Friday, ended on Sunday, and this was the round 7 game between the these are among the 4 players who had maximum points as of round 6. So Ronald Wabwire is with white, the Ugandan 10-year-old, and Harrison is playing black. So, uh, yeah, the Verona Hotel is in Nairobi, for context, for people who don't actually know where this place is. So, Wabwire is the 10-year-old phenom sensation who's been tearing through the tournament. And right now, he's facing Harrison Githinji, and let's see if Harrison could stop him. So, Wabwire started with pawn to e4. Harrison employed the Karokan with pawn to c6, knight to f3, pawn to d5, takes, and now pawn to d4, knight to f6, pawn to c4, pawn to e6, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop d3, takes, and now castles. All this is just normal theory. I mean, nothing too crazy here. Everything has been played like a bunch of times, and this is excellent theory from the two. So castles for white, knight to c6, bishop to e3, getting the bishop out, uh, just developing and trying to create something from the game, trying to get something from the game. Pawn to b6, creating space to develop this bishop. Could be developed to bishop to b7, or if the knight was still on b8, could be developed to a6 to trade off this very good light square bishop for white. So all okay, all theory, all amazing play from the pair. So now queen to e2 was played, bishop b7, now rook a d1, knight to b4, trying to reroute the knight off to b4, then bring it back maybe to d5, and plant it at the center, give the bishop on b7 some work finally. And now after pawn to a3, the knight was brought back to d5, knight takes on d5, bishop takes on d5, bishop was brought back to d3, and the game is still equal. No one really having much advantage, or no one really having much of the initiative in this position. No visible pawn breaks. Maybe e5 is a pawn break at some point, but at the moment it doesn't really make sense. So maybe you try and prepare it and stuff of that nature, but there's nothing crazy going on in the position. It's all just a maneuvering game, trying to test the waters, see who's going to get a better position in the middle game. So rook to c8 by Harrison, knight was thrown into e5, bishop b3 attacking the rook c1, queen to d6. Here you can even trade. I think trading is still okay. Takes, rook takes, and now maybe queen to d6, or yeah, queen to d6, and bring your other rook into the game somehow, and continue with this game. Maybe knight jumps into d5. All equal, all still equal, nothing too crazy. Now bishop to d6, refraining from trading pieces too early in the game. And now Birre played knight to g4. So the knights are traded, queen takes on g4, bishop to f6. Anything here is possible, even pawn to f5 here I think is possible. You play pawn to f5, maybe now bring your bishop to f6, have your bishop sitting on a very nice pocket, or even throw your rook to f6 and bring it to g6 before playing bishop to f6. Everything here is just normal play. Of course you can't play it immediately because you have to trade on c1, because you're going to lose that rook, but you get the idea. So bishop to f6, queen back to e2, bishop takes on d4, and you really have to ask yourself, is this pawn for free? So personally I wouldn't have taken the pawn, because then you're relieving white off of the weakness on d4. In my opinion, the pawn on d4 isn't really a strength for white, because it can never be pushed to d5, and you can never really play comfortably having that pawn on d4. And you taking on d4 is exchanging your h7 pawn, which was taken with check, king takes, queen to d3 with check, king goes back to g8, and now queen takes on d4. So you've traded a very crucial pawn on h7, a pawn that is actually stronger than the pawn that was on d4. In my opinion, I couldn't have taken it, but it was Harrison's game, and he chose to trade it that way. So not a real problem, actually, not like a huge problem, actually, because it's still playable, it's still a good position, but it's now becoming very easy for white to play, and really hard, really tough for black to find a plan. So queen trade, the queens were traded on d4. The other rook was brought to d8 into the center, bishop to c3, rook lift, rook to e1, rook c8, rook dc8, and there was a rook lift from rook to e3, bishop to b4. And in this point, I think this is the point where I think black started going astray a little bit. I mean, you can see that the bishop on b3 is almost hanging. If maybe this bishop gets out of here somehow, the bishop on b3 will be hanging. But then it's not really easy to get this bishop on c3 out of the game, because you're going to lose the game to a back rank mate. So you have to save a couple of moves so that you can actually attack the bishop on b3. And in that way, I think black could have taken advantage of this and played a couple of moves that are going to save the bishop. Maybe remove this rook, maybe rook to f4, and prepare maybe the d5 square for the bishop. It's still impossible to move this bishop, because even with the rook on c8, it's enough to deliver mate. So very tricky position. Harrison ended up playing bishop to b4, and now Wabwire played rook to g3. Pawn to g6 was played. Even pawn to f6 is possible. I think in this position you can never really take it, because then you lose the game to a back rank checkmate. But I think anything in this position is just playable. F6 or g6 rather, not just anything. You can't play something like a6, you're going to lose the game. So pawn to g6 is playable. This, in my opinion, is a little bit weaker, because then you're opening the diagonal for this bishop, which is much stronger than yours, and you can't really use your bishop to defend. So here Obiter played rook to h3, threatening some nasty checkmates on h8, and now Harrison started running away with the king to f8, rook to e1, getting out of that diagonal and getting ready to maybe move the bishop at some point. And now Harrison played king to e7, and I think this was the, let's say, game defining blunder at this point. It's not really game defining in a way that it loses the game, but it makes Harrison now stop playing for a 3 point or a 3 result game rather. So bishop to b4 was played, and the purpose of bishop to b4 is to introduce the threat of playing pawn to b3 with a double attack on the rook and the bishop. And here you can try and maybe capture the bishop and continue the game like that, because that is eventually what happened in the game. But Harrison played rook to d7, pawn to the b3 was played, rook takes on b4, pawn takes on b4, bishop to b5, rook to h3, attacking the pawn on f7, which was defended by the king going back to e7, pawn to h3, just getting ready to maybe give this rook some job, maybe lift it somehow, and no longer be in threat of any back rank checkmate. So the position, you can look at the position and maybe think that white is winning because he has an extra material. I mean, a rook versus a bishop is extra material to the person with the rook, but it's not particularly, or it's not objectively that easy to play it, because black can very easily build some sort of a fortress, and it's going to be very hard for white to actually convert the position. So let's say what the kid did. So he played Harrison played rook to c3. Sorry about that. Rook to c3, rook to e3 was played, and Harrison traded the rook. So in this position, I think playing maybe something like rook to c1 with check, and after king to h2, maybe something like rook to c2 or bishop to c3. Maybe this could have, I think, kept him back in the game. Yeah, bishop to c3, bishop to c6 rather is important because we don't really want this rook to land on f3. It will be a devastating attack on our king. But what Harrison played instead, trading the rooks, I think this was a case of maybe misevaluation, and the time could have played a huge factor because then Harrison at this point, I think we're on move 40. Harrison at this point had already stopped recording because he was down to his last 5 minutes. And during this tournament, we were allowed to stop recording when you're down to your last 5 minutes. So this could be a very strong case of time travel because then he stopped or he misevaluated, which I think was due to a miss, you know, lacking enough time to actually calculate the position. So Harrison ended up trading the rooks, and after f takes on e3, this game is completely winning for white, and white converted it perfectly. So Harrison played bishop back to c6, a move late and a rook less in this variation. And now after rook to h8, he played bishop to d5. The rook was played to c8. King to d7 attacking the rook. Rook went back to c3. King to d6. King to f2. King to e5. Rook to c7 attacking both pawns. And you can't really defend them all. So Harrison ended up defending one of them. Played rook to f6. I played king to f6. Rook captures on a7. Bishop takes on b3. Rook to b7. Bishop back to d5. Rook takes on c6. On b6 rather. King to e7. King to g3. King to d7. Rook to a6. Pawn to e5. King back to h2, just preparing to start pushing these pawns up the board and maybe create a passer on the h file. So Harrison played rook to d7, trying to deal with the clear threat in the position, which is the pawn on b4. That pawn is a pass pawn, and if it starts rolling down the board, it's going to be impossible to catch. So pawn to g4 is played here. Rook to b7, rook back, king to b7, rook back to a1. I don't know why I keep on confusing the rook with the king. King to b6, pawn to h4, king to b5, rook b1, king c4, pawn to h5, creating the passer. Takes, and now after king to d3, the kid pushed pawn to h6, bishop to e4, and now pawn to b5. And in this position, Harrison Githinji's clock ran 0, and he lost on time, also on position, because it's clear. It's as clear as day. So a very great tournament from the kid. The kid won this game and went on to win the tournament. There was, I think, they were tied with Lenny Mataiga because Lenny Mataiga won against Zadok, and Harrison went on. Oh, I mean, Ronald Wabwire went on to actually win the entire tournament on tiebreaks. It was the Buchol's tiebreak system, and it put him higher than Lenny Mataiga. So the kid is a phenom. I mean, people are going to say that maybe it was luck that brought him to this point, but then he played very strong people. I mean, not very strong because then the ratings don't really show that. But then, considering the field that was in this tournament, I think he played the strongest opponents, and he went on to beat each and every one of them. So, well done to the kid. The crazy thing about it is not really crazy, but the thing about the kid and I'm going to put a link in the description for the tournament, for the interview that he did after the tournament. it talks about where the guy where the kid comes from in Uganda. It doesn't really come from money, and from a very humble background, etc. And seeing him perform to this level in a tournament very far away from home is actually commendable. And I think East Africa has very promising juniors coming up. So great game from Ronald. Congratulations to him and to the Ugandans who came to play in this tournament. Also, I'd like to. Okay, I didn't really get getting PGNs in Kenya is so hard. So I didn't get the PGNs for this game from either of the players, because then Harrison stopped recording at move 40. So I had to watch the channel, Victor Ngani's channel, Raising Chess Kids in Africa, and he had live streamed the entire round. If you'd like to watch it, I'll also put a link in the description. You can go ahead and watch and maybe subscribe to the channel. And yeah, it was an amazing round 7 in all respects. I mean, it was going crazy on almost every board because people were playing. There was fatigue that was in play. There was, I mean, people were playing for the cash prize. So everything was going haywire in many games. Many people were getting forked, others were getting skewered. Just playing so hard. So this was the game. If you stayed this long, I'm going to put a link for everything that I've just mentioned. And if you stayed this long, thank you so much. And don't forget to hit subscribe and maybe